Welcome to the Cake Therapy Podcast, a slice of joy and healing with your host, Dr. Altricia Foster. This is a heartwarming and uplifting space that celebrates the transformative power of baking therapy. The conversations will be a delightful blend of inspirational stories, expert insights, and practical baking tips. Each episode will take listeners on a journey of self-discovery, emotional healing, and connection through the therapeutic art of baking. There's something here for everyone, so lock in and let's get into it. Please join me in welcoming the talented and visionary Leah Sherman. Welcome, Leah.
Hi, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we're excited to have you. Let me know, how's your day going?
It's going well. It's been a busy day, but we're in an election year and I work as part of the news cycle. So it's been interesting, but it's been great.
Yeah, I'm really excited to really connect with you again in conversation. So little backstory on Leah and I. It's like we met a few months ago when she did an interview with me for Now This. And I found out in that conversation that she does actually do some baking in her free time. And, I'm excited to talk to her about that, like how she manages this role at Now This and her baking that she does as a hobby.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, this is a fun little switch for me. Normally I'm the interviewer. So this is a funny little role reversal we have here because I interviewed you last time.
Yeah, please don't judge my skills, okay?
That's great.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your journey into the field of journalism and how you got started at Now This.
That is a long story. I'm going to condense it down quite a bit. So when I graduated from school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I started in PR. And I have all the respect for people who work in PR because I hated it. It was really hard. And I kind of was just a little aimless. I was a little bit lost and just wanted to try a bunch of things. And I've always been a pretty creative person. So I took a sales job at Tribune Media, which at the time had a cable station called WGN America. It doesn't exist anymore. But I was selling ad time there and was starting to try and suss out other departments at the organization, at the company. And in doing so, was very fortunate that I kind of became closer with the VP of marketing, who took me under his wing and allowed me to write scripts for a branded promotional series called Movies for America. And I realized that production and writing was something I was very interested in and I wanted to pursue more. So I eventually left the company, joined a smaller production company where I really learned the ropes of how to be a producer. Took a year off to travel and then realized and this is something that kind of went back to my college days. I think I've always realized how powerful media actually is and that the voices who share messages really can shape a narrative in our culture and in our society. And I knew when I got into production that I wanted to be a part of that. And so when I applied to Now This, I was really excited because it gave me an opportunity to pitch stories I wanted to see in the world, like your cake therapy, and hopefully make just a small impact in what we consume and reach people with those kinds of stories. So that's my condensed backstory.
So what did you do in college? What was your major?
I had two majors. I was a psychology and economics double. Actually, I thought for a little while, I thought about going into clinical psychology. And then just decided, I just didn't think that research was necessarily for me. I didn't know if I could necessarily handle a lot of the emotional toll with being either a therapist or a clinical psychologist, but it was always very interesting to me.
So as you did psychology and economics, what was that transition like, going into this media?
Going into media, so I took a lot of cultural psychology classes, and that was, I loved them, nerded out so hard in cultural psych. And I think that was the big light bulb moment for me, was knowing that because so much of our culture is made of media. And so it kind of becomes almost a media psychology class in a lot of ways, because you're analyzing, okay, how do the ways in which I react to this movie or this piece of music infuses a part of who I am, and then it makes me participate in the world potentially in a different way. So they're not as far apart as I think a lot of people think. So it didn't necessarily set me up for success in terms of skills of like knowing how to edit or write or hold a camera, but it did set me up to kind of think deeply and critically about how to create narratives.
Yeah, because the place where you work at nowadays, it's really well known for its innovative storytelling. Do you think your major in college really did set you up for, this new role that you have now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it really ignited a passion to see all sides of a story. We used to do these conversations in class where we would discuss articles or movies or music videos, whatever the topic might have been on the syllabus. And I think it really gave me an appreciation for how we can all consume the same media and come away with different takeaways. So I don't know if it was very helpful in the way that it made me start thinking about how other people could perceive the content I make and to always kind of view things from a different angle.
Yeah. So what is your process, as you're, I'm interested to know, how do you develop your stories in terms of how do you come up with your ideas and such?
A lot of reading. It's a lot of reading. It starts with really just, how do I think about an article? How has something impacted me? And is there someone else out there where they might have the same reaction to something in the news that I might? For example, with your story, when I came across an article about cake therapy, for me, it just felt heartwarming. And I was like, we're at a time, especially we were close to the holidays, where I would hope people want to kind of hear about baking and what it can do for them. The creative process varies. It completely varies. Sometimes it's just looking at a lot of different references and kind of seeing if something sparks a piece as something of inspiration. Other times it just comes to you really fast. I wish I could distill it down more, but it really depends.
So what is I would say, you said you do a lot of reading and it comes from a lot of different sources. What's one of your favorite sources what are you reading mostly now?
Oh, wow. I read a lot of memoirs, actually. But reading also, I'm constantly reading articles online. So New York Times, The Atlantic is a big one, op-ed pieces. I use something called Feedly. So it shows me a lot of the top headlines of the day or week or what people are responding to and clicking on. And I like seeing how other journalists are using those, are telling those stories in different ways. Because you'll probably see the same story across a lot of different feeds, but it's going to be told slightly differently in each way.
Oh, I see. That's how it works. So what was, so for me, what really caught my interest when we had our conversation was you were baking, you were baking through things, or it was just a hobby for you. And I love when individuals in other professions tell me that they also bake, to really, I would say, as a hobby or to just center themselves per se. I'd love to know, what got you interested in baking? Was it something you grew up with, or it's something you discovered later in life?
Yeah, I grew up in a very food conscious family. We love food. It's, I think, how we share love with each other. It's an interesting point for all of us. My parents always would say to me, you're allowed to not like something, but you're not allowed to not like it if you didn't try it. So we were always encouraged to be very adventurous eaters, and it was very much a priority in our family. So I grew up with a huge appreciation for food. Every Christmas Eve, my dad does this huge Christmas Eve dinner and is poring over magazines and recipes for weeks prior to it. And so I think it got me to appreciate, the different ways food can be made, as well as different kinds of recipes and different influences. My mom, though, is more of the baker, and she kind of taught me the basics of baking. So I've been baking for as long as I can remember. I honestly have no idea when that started. I mean, I was probably a kid. But I think I started to become more, let's say, advanced in it, maybe in college and just after college. And it really took off when I was working because I needed a creative outlet that wasn't on the computer. My work inherently is very creative. You know, I work in video, I work in media.
Yeah.
But there's something so different about getting to work with your hands versus staring at a computer all day.
Yeah, of course.
There's something just better about kind of like just letting your mind wander a little bit as you frost a cake or as you just do something that's a little bit more physical rather than cerebral.
Yeah. So you have this Leah Cakes, right? This page where you do your baking is where you post the things you bake. Who are some of the bakers that you look up to?
Oh boy, I don't have a ton of references, to be honest. I don't know a ton of bakers. I mean, I appreciate what Christina Tosi does with her business, the Milk Bar. I don't have a lot of other influences, to be honest. I just
bake.
I just bake.
Yeah. Do you think that Leah Cakes will probably one day become commercialized, just being a business, like a standalone business for you?
It could. It's something I've gone back and forth on, but I think it's something in the future, potentially. I think I'm a little cautious about taking something that's so stress-free. Well, maybe not stress-free. Making elaborate cakes can be sometimes a little stressful on deadline.
Yeah.
But it is something for me it's something for me that's more of a hobby. And I think I do a lot of things. I guess I just don't want to put pressure on my hobby. That would be my only point.
Yeah. I love that baking is so deeply personal to you, because it is, it's deeply personal to a lot of us. So I get it. I get where you don't want to put pressure on yourself. You don't want to put too much of the eyes on it. You have to feel like you can't just experiment with your own, talent or gift or the time that you have. Do you see any influence? Like, does your journalism influence your baking at all, or does baking influence your journalism? And do you see like any parallels between the two?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I definitely can see a parallel that when I'm more stressed out, I want to bake something because I need to put that energy into something. But that's, I think, more of a not being able to sit still kind of mentality. In terms of it being artistic, I'd say no. I think it stays pretty separate. I think it's a way for me to either unwind or just figure out how the rest of my day went without putting pressure on it or overthinking. I was gonna say something and it just completely went out of my head.
That's okay. Tell me some of the things that you like to bake, and when do you bake each? Do you is there a time where you choose a specific dessert to bake?
Oh yeah, I love making custom cakes for my friends' birthdays. That is my favorite thing to do. I think, especially when it's a good friend of yours and you do something that is so custom to who they are and what they know. There's no better feeling than creating something completely for that person and then seeing their reaction to this thing that you like poured your heart into that they love, and it's just so them in a cake, and it's edible, and it's just, it makes, I hope it makes them feel special and realize how much like I care for them. And I hope it makes them feel, seen in some kind of way, that like someone's there to make something like that for you, or puts an effort into that kind of relationship to do that for you. So in the past, I've done cakes that are, I've done 2 wedding cakes, very stressful, very high pressure. Don't know if I'll do it again. So yeah, a lot of birthday cakes. I actually, it's funny we're having this conversation now because I just finished last night doing a bunch of cookies for a bachelorette party, some X-rated bachelorette party cookies. Not be on the Instagram because I do not want to get censored, but I really think it depends on, it's all occasion-based baking, I think, to make something very specific. I love themes, and so I love when I can work within a theme to make it for somebody else.
You speak of when you bake for a friend or family that you are hoping that they feel seen. what do you feel when you bake for someone? What are you feeling in those moments?
It feels like a way of presenting someone with a manifestation of how much you care about them. It feels like you can actually this sounds so corny now that I'm saying this, but it feels like when you put in so much effort, you're kind of showing someone without saying it how much you care about them in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's also the satisfaction of it too, of like looking at it and saying, wow, I did that. That's incredible. I never thought I could do something like that. Or wow, it turned out, or oh no, it fell down. But very real thing too.
Like in speaking with you, I'm seeing how much you really enjoy cakes and doing these things. I'm really getting your passion. Believe it or not, I'm really getting your passion from just hearing you talk about the things you do, when are you doing them, etc. I recently saw on the Now This Instagram page, right, where you had used baking as a metaphor in your storytelling. Can you share any stories of any instances where baking has played a role in your journalistic work or in the stories you've covered or you're going to cover?
Absolutely. So I'm really glad you bring this up. So we just started a new series at Now This called Money Bakers. And it was a series that I pitched, and I've been working very closely with our wonderful executive producer and our great team and fantastic editor. We wanted to I pitched this idea to them a while ago about the idea for a need to increase financial literacy and talk about finances somewhere in our content. Mm-hmm. But the idea came up because for me personally, and I was an econ major, money has never been that interesting to me. I do not care about numbers. It is just inherently not visual or interesting to me. And I know it should be. I know it's something that taking care of your finances, investing, putting away savings, these are all really, really important things in life. And I wish it was more interesting to most of us. But what I realized when I was like scrolling on my Instagram is I could look at 1,000 videos of cakes in one sitting probably, or someone making a cake. But watching a financial explainer was so boring, like I couldn't get through it. And so my thought process behind the pitch originally was, what if we marry the two? What if we make finance interesting in a way? Yeah. It's not saying that it's not to some people already, but for me personally, it's not inherently interesting. Mm-hmm. But what if we use really fun, colorful visuals like cake and cookies and sprinkles? And we just did one where there was cheese, so I guess that's not really baking. But what if we do that and we work with food to make the concepts, one, easier to understand, but also a little bit more eye-catching and a little bit more fun? Mm-hmm. So we've published 2 or 3 episodes already where we used meringue to talk about high yield savings accounts. We did one about 401k versus a Roth IRA and your retirement savings, which we used cake to explain when taxes come in and out of those accounts. We have another one coming up that's all about budgeting, which is a cheese board. It's not really baking. We have a couple others in the pipeline as well to talk about like credit card rewards and how those work. As well as student debt, which I think is, really important to know about. But it was something for me. Baking just is interesting. It's something I love. And I think food in a way is a universal language, whereas finance with all its many, many acronyms is not that accessible. So if we can marry the two, then you have something that people can understand and may hopefully want to watch.
Mm-hmm. What has the feedback been like? Yeah, what kind of feedback have you been getting?
We haven't gotten a ton so far because we've only published a couple of episodes. Some people have said, particularly for the high yield savings account one, they're like, well, you nailed that. You nailed the analogy, which was great to hear. I think we're still trying to get some traction with the series, so I would love to hear more about what people want to learn about. As I'm creating these, I am also learning about finance. I am not an expert by any means, but I think hopefully that helps people realize how accessible it actually is. You just have to take the time to learn it, because if I can learn it, anyone can learn it. And I hope we're making it more accessible through food.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the moment I saw it, I was pretty impressed with the analogy, and I was like, oh my God, how did she come up with that concept But then I was rooting for it because I have a collective of women who are in this culinary arts therapy world with me. And one of our hashtags is take back the kitchen, So using the kitchen to describe and explain and just center yourself, just going back into the kitchen to do that. And one of the cake artists in that group, her name is Lexi. She wrote a blog for Cake Therapy where she talked about people bringing back the kitchen in movies, even in Barbie. Yeah, so she wrote a blog about, talking about how people are using culinary arts in movies. It's showing off the therapeutic aspect of it, the conversational aspect of it. So immediately resonated with me. And I was like, yeah, that's my girl. She did say she likes baking. And here she is making the connection. So I'm proud of you, for thinking of that and really executing it as good as you are doing it.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I hope people get a lot out of it. It's been a really wonderful journey for me, just even learning about everything and putting it into terms I personally understand. So I hope other people feel the same way.
Yeah. Are there any, so as you're putting this series together and you're using different desserts as a metaphor, right, for money, are there any desserts in that series that sparked your interest in that, I'm going to have to try making this?
Oh boy. So it's hard, right? Because there's so many things. I'm a very ambitious baker. I am that person who's like, I can do that. And then it ends up taking 6 hours and it's like a horrible time the whole time. But I think what's been interesting with this is we're in a studio, right? So I have to make everything ahead of time, but we also have to show a lot of the process. So some of the things I really want to make, when we were talking, for example, about, we wanted to talk about like layering. It had something to do with layers. I forget what the exact topic was. And I was like, we could maybe do a puff pastry or a croissant or something. But with those being things you have to chill, that's not going to do very well under the studio lights. So it adds another layer to the challenge of like, what foods can we use or not use? Like if I have butter, is it going to melt? Food artists, know what they're doing. So I'm like, maybe we should bring one on. It's not even so, there you go. It's not even been so much like, okay, what do I want to make? It's all these factors of, can it fit an analogy that makes something clearer? Because there's a whole world where if we introduced food, it could make it more confusing. So I want to make sure it's super, super clear what the metaphor is. Will it survive in the studio? And is it something that's gonna be okay over a long period of time? Like, for example, bread, because it's expanding, right? You can only work with it for a certain amount of time before it maybe overproofs or it starts to rise too much, or it flattens completely. So we have to think about the stability of things as well. Yeah. I would love to do more on it though. I think that would be fun.
Of course. Well, do it. You're in the studio and someone comes in and they see Leah so super passionate about her baked goods and baking, and they want to become hobby bakers. They're interested in picking up a baking hobby. What advice would you give to your colleague in that moment, or anyone who wants to, become a hobbyer?
I think, my first piece of advice is always buy extra ingredients, because if you mess up, it's really annoying to go out to the market again and again and again. That would be my first thing. But I think also remembering that it's just a recipe and it's just food, right? It can bring so much joy, but if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. It's about the process and about doing it, and it's about having fun with it. So I would say if anyone wanted to try and be a hobby baker, it's just do it. It's just about trying it out. You don't know until you know, and don't be afraid to experiment. Because the more you experiment, the more you learn about how these ingredients work together, and you can kind of make your own. Once you start then knowing the fundamentals of how ingredients work together and how it all comes together, you can start to play, and it's really cool to then start making tweaks to your own recipes, and it's just fun.
Yeah, it definitely is just fun. But how are you telling them how to balance their demanding career like you have with the personal passion passion of baking? What do you tell them? How do you do it?
How do I do it? I think that if you really want to do something, you find the time, and you have to let your passion be your motivator. It has to be something for you. And I think when it is something for you and you realize the importance of it, you do it. I got up early this morning to make cookies, right? Or to bake, because I knew I needed to do it because I have a thing this weekend, but that's a choice I make, right? My choice is, this is worth it to me to get up a little bit earlier and be baking versus maybe sleeping a little longer. I think it's about figuring out what those priorities are and finding the time, because we can all carve out an hour or two for ourselves per week, right?
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah. And that's, you know what, I can definitely see some alignment with you on how you approach it, because if you are passionate about something and if you enjoy doing it, it is part of your own personal well-being. So people make time for the things that are really important to them. It doesn't have to overwhelm you, because you can always stop. You can always stop if it becomes too much.
What's going to happen if your cake goes unfrosted for a day? You'll be fine. I promise. The world won't end.
Yeah. Nobody knows you're baking it anyway. So just do it. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're doing it for yourself, then you're doing it for yourself. And it doesn't have to all be done in one day, right? I mean, read the recipe thoroughly, because sometimes things take multiple days. You know, just think of it that, like, do the time management, read the full recipe. But if you don't finish something, no one's going to know, right? No one's going to care.
Yeah. So in this world of content generation that you do it very well, let me tell you.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, and you are also very passionate about these cakes that you're making, this world of Leah's cakes. Do you see any convergence at all between your passion for media and baking, such as maybe a food content blog, food content piece, or even a baking show?
I think the closest I'm going to come to a baking show is probably the Money Bakers on Now This. I like that in that show, baking is kind of a metaphor for other things. So it's both entertaining and hopefully informative. I don't know if I would do a blog or anything like that. My baking is so personal, and it's something that I really use to just connect with others and hopefully make others feel better. But I do think that there is a bit of overlap in just the expression of creativity. Baking fills a hole for me that's a different side of creativity than what I can get in my work. And I think when you expand as an artist in a lot of ways, I do other kind of forms of art as well. They all feed into each other, right? Any time that you paint or you read or you write or you create a video, all of those things help you think about creativity in a different way, and they all help you become a more well-rounded artist. So I can't maybe draw any direct parallels between my baking and my work as a video producer, but I do think that there's probably been some influence in just thinking more clearly and more creatively.
Okay, so the Cake Therapy Foundation, right, is the girls here who are listening. There's some of them who've been molded to think that the traditional form of, the traditional subjects or majors are what actually they should aspire to be, or to become an engineer, physician, whatever. And journalism, or law. But there's also a girl who is really interested. There's also a girl who wants to become an artist, but because she's been so socialized, think that these traditional forms is the answer, and you have to actually pursue such a career. What do you say to a girl like that?
I'd say I was one. I had to have this conversation with myself. I think it's a big reason that I, in school, for example, studied psychology and economics I love psychology, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a big reason why I chose those majors instead of theater or film. There is a lot of pressure right now, especially in our economy, to find jobs that are very stable or pay a lot. And I understand why. There's a pragmatism that I completely understand and respect. In my own personal journey, which is the only thing that I can speak to, what I realized throughout different sides of my career, I was in sales, PR, marketing, video production, and now journalism, is that you're going to have to work really, really hard no matter what you choose to do. Whether you are a lawyer or an engineer or an artist, you're going to have to work very hard. So why not work at something that you love? If you're not passionate about your career in some capacity, you're going to spend hours of your years of your life dedicated to that career. It's not all going to be fun. Even being an artist or being a video producer, pursuing your passions, it's work for a reason. But there has to be some kind of payoff that you have from all that work. And I think it was a big thing for me. I really had to consider, okay, if I'm going to have to work really hard no matter what I'm pursuing, what are the things that I actually care about? What kind of mark would I like to leave on this world? Maybe. What are causes I care about? What are things I like to do? Because if you don't have something motivating you, you're just going to burn out. That being said, I think there's ways to go about it where you try. I think, we try as much as possible. My advice would be to pursue your passions, but make sure you also aren't closing any doors. Make sure you're staying open-minded about the world so that you can be, a responsible adult who, can pay their bills and, support themselves, but also keep the doors open. You don't know where things are going to take you. I started in PR and I'm in video production now through a very weird, circuitous route. You've no idea where things are going to take you. So stay open-minded to the other possibilities that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. She says, stay open-minded to all the possibilities. And she also said, you're going to have to work hard anyway. Yeah, you're going to have to work hard at any road you take, any profession you choose. And why not do something that you love? I am going to leave it here with Leah. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a really good conversation. I loved it.
I do have one more thought on that too, which is you can't control your future, right? You have no idea what could happen tomorrow in your career. So why would you choose something just because it's safe? You don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My journey started as a vaccine scientist. Look at me now. Look at Leah, right? So thank you so much for joining us, Leah. This has been a really great conversation. I want to encourage our listeners to follow and support the Cake Therapy Foundation. I'm inviting everyone out there to like, subscribe, leave comments on our podcast. And then my book's still available, Cake Therapy, How Baking Changed My Life. And thank you, Leah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad we got to chat. This was very fun.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
This has been your slice of joy and healing.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cake Therapy Podcast. Your support means the world to us. Let us know what you thought about today's episode in the comment section. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you found the conversation helpful, please share it with a friend. Also follow Sugar Spoon Desserts on all social media platforms. We invite you to support Cake Therapy and the work we do with our foundation by clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description or by visiting the Cake Therapy website and making a donation. All your support will go towards the Cake Therapy Foundation and the work we are doing to help women and girls. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.